psilocybin is a tool in its first and foremost principle as a tool of exploration. And I think what we need in this community is more Dr. Stranges. We need more sorcerers. We need more magicians. You know, this is the land of Hogwarts. You know, you should be grabbing them mushrooms in October and, you know, going off to school. Because the way I've envisioned this is that, as Mudu talked about earlier, I'm scared to talk after you. You were on point there. The vision that I've been looking at is that we need more people not to take psilocybin for early childhood trauma, for sexual trauma, for some type of psychological problem, but as a tool of exploration, to explore the multiverse, to go deep, to go hard, to go full blast into the novel states of consciousness that we look at. People, you know, a few years back when I had to talk about high dose psilocybin in the 20 to 30 gram range, people looked at me like I was extreme, you know. But I'm not the only person that does that. You see some other folks here, they taking 20 grams of psilocybin, dry grams. Now it's becoming, how do I get so much down? That's the difficulty. So dealing with azarensis and the panscience and others to get a higher dose of the constituents inside of the body, to be able to explore, to be able to look into the darkness and say, hey, I'm not looking for the light in the darkness. I'm looking for my eyes to adjust to the darkness so I can go deeper into the darkness. I know and understand that this is not just a feel-good, friendly bubbles and fairies type of thing. It's also hard work. It's deep work. It's the places that you don't want to face inside of yourself and inside of the multiverse. So we need more Dr. Strangers. We need those folks who are going to go out and encounter the entities that are in these places and spaces, because they are there. And they're not all likable and lovable and, you know, the swirling divas of Hindu pantheons. There is the Mahabharata there also, where there's war, where there's malevolence, where there's horror, where there's fear, and all of those things are there. And we've still pushed forward and moved forward because it's something that we have to do to become something more. And I think that's what entheogens do for us. It is something to make us more than what we are as being human beings. I think it ushered us into the human and will eventually usher us into the transhumanistic realms and then ultimately into something that is unimaginable. Ray Kurzweil and them, when they're talking about the technological portion of this, they're talking about the technological singularity. They're talking about merging with AIs, downloading consciousness into supercomputers. But we already have the supercomputer. We already have the hardware. We already have the software in the entheogens that nature provided us from the beginning. When we were walking on the Sahara, you know, came from outer space. But outer space is nothing out there. It's all inside. When we look at Alpha Centauri and Vega and Orion and Sirius, they're not out there. They're inside. So when we look out, we're only looking at a reflection of what's inside of us. So these things came through the multiverse to be able to pair with us, for us to be able to merge with them, and they deliver their information to us, because the models that we built in the world are only models that we are taking from ourselves. So software, downloading, uploading, you know, improving hardware, putting in the new chip, erasing the whole hard drive. All those things are part of what happens inside of us. And it's in our community, it's in the literature, it's in the lectures. We just have to start embracing it. The Sahara, at a place called the Sili Plateau of Niger in Algeria, is where we have the oldest representation of mushroom use on Earth. Now I know people, you know, talk about South America and things like that, but even if we talk about Pangea, at one point in time, South America and Africa were butted together, they melded together. So the same plants that you have in South America, you have the same plants in Africa. They just never went to Africa and asked the Africans. They went to South America and asked the South Americans, but they never went to Africa and asked the Africans. Because Africa is the dark continent, you know, Tarzan's there with Jane and the rest of them. And the thing about Africa is that Africa, when they say something's secret, it's still secret. Not secret if you got $1,800, it's still secret. Because those oaths are taken. Those type of things are adhered to, you know. And when I was talking about Marvel Comics, because Marvel Comics is driven through entheogens and LSD and mushrooms and things like that. All the same two guys that were hooking up Dr. Strange by sitting in an apartment in New York dropping acid mushrooms are the same ones who created Guardians of the Galaxy and the Infinity Stone and the whole new Marvel universe that's going to be put out in the movies, and it's coming out in the movies in Avengers 3 and Doctor Strange and the Black Panther. All of those movies are a reflection of the entheogenic usage of those 60s guys who came back from Vietnam and were utilizing entheogens, and they moved past the old guard of Marvel, which were Steve Ditko and Stan Lee and those older guys who had brought it up to a certain level. The Black Panther's coming out in 2016 also. It's going to talk about Wakanda and the high level civilization of Africa that is not a fantasy. They didn't just make these things up. Jack Kirby, who was really the brains behind Marvel Comics, not Stan Lee. Stan Lee was the executive. Jack Kirby, who created the Black Panther in 1966, during the black uprisings in the United States and here in the UK and other places around the world, brought the first black superhero to Marvel Comics. And he talked about Wakanda, which was a mythical place, but Wakanda is not a mythical place and is not a mythical people. And the Black Panther is not a mythical comic book character. You have the Black Panther Society in Africa, which eats the Amanita pantherina mushroom to get the powers of the Black Panther. They use the Black Panther mushroom for the powers of the Black Panther. But they use the same mushroom in Japan, and that mushroom delivered what was called ninjutsu, or the dark Japanese martial arts. Ninjutsu came out of a mushroom, a psychedelic mushroom. As a matter of fact, for those that don't know, I'm a martial artist. That's what I do as my work. I teach martial arts, ancient and traditional and contemporary African fighting sciences. And all of the martial arts that you see have entheogens that go along with them. How you think, you know, the Kung Fu guys, you know, they're standing on a blade of grass or jumping to the top of the tree and, you know, 1,000 arrows come and they just knocking them out of the way. That's all entheogenic use. Because they would have battles where they never engaged physically. They took the entheogen, stood back, and they battled entheogenically between the two warriors. So nobody was killed, but you found out who had the best skill and the most skill. These type of things went on, they were common. You know, we had masquerade warfare. Where you see the masquerades in Africa, you may see a bunch of raffia or somebody on stilts and things like that. They did battle the same way. This was all part of the sensibility of the entheogenic use in ancient times, in the ancient world, that is re-emerging now. We're only at the beginning. People always say that the 60s was a failure. Oh, the hippies are gone and the 60s was a failure, they got rid of. No, that was just the beginning. It's a baby now, just learning to walk. This conference is just standing up on your feet, waddling and toddling. But when the next generation gets into this, because they're already there anyway, they don't want your schooling, they don't want your knowledge, they don't want your information. They want to go into the multiverse and bring back a new human being. As Moody was talking about earlier, a new archetype, a new paradigm. Because being a human being, you can't do nothing. You know, what, you're gonna work 10 hours a day for 60 years to sit down and die? That's a great life. Or are you gonna stand when you wanna come to this conference that you don't have to get on a plane and fly 5 hours to Dublin, stay in Dublin for 15 hours sitting in a chair, then come to the Breaking Convention conference running down the hallway to get here. No, you want to come to Breaking Convention, you just go ding-a-ding-a-ding and boop, You know, okay, I'm ready to give my lecture. You know, or we do the conference like this. We all Friday night at 11 o'clock. Take 30 dry grams of psilocybin mushrooms. We lie down in the dark. And we all meet up in a place in the hyperdimensional realms and have the conference there. And the conference can, you know, we have great food, great times, you know. You don't have to worry about sitting in a chair. You can just be floating in the lotus posture, you know. This is my vision. Beyond the human being, beyond what we are now. So when we first encountered these mushrooms on the Sahara and ate them and said, oh man, this is something different, you know. Now let's make some more sophisticated tools. Let's, you know, let's make a wheel. You know, I've been envisioning this building. It's, you know, it's wide at the base and it goes to a point. What are we gonna do with it? I don't know, but let's make it. But most folks don't know that the Merkut, or what do we call the pyramid, is a time machine and a teleportation device that, you know, they're for teleporting to different spots. Well, that's another lecture. Man's relationship with cattle, because these mushrooms are crophilic, they grow on cow dung. And Africa has the oldest unbroken hallucinogenic use of mushrooms on earth. I was in South Africa year before last. They have 300 different types of entheogens just in South Africa alone. 300 different types. Some will kill you. Some will kill you. You know, that's why I'm a psilocybin guy. I don't get into a lot of the exotics. You know, they say take this one, but only take this much, because if you take this much, you know, you're dead as Lincoln. I'm gonna go through this real quick. Okay, mandalas. Because we have to deal with mnemonic downloading and uploading into devices. We have the technology. We can, you know, they're making the $6 billion man. It was 6 million in the 70s, now it's gonna be 6 billion. But we have the technology. We have the technology in mandalas. When they took this mandala and three-dimensionalized it, this is what they got. Because that's where all those Buddhist saints live at. Now they'll tell you, of course, nowadays, you know, no, we don't do hallucinogenics. That's not the way we do it. But there are some that still do. But this is the place of learning. This is the place that the ancestors lived. The Persian rugs, the magic carpet. Each one of these is a different place. Each one is a different world that you can go into. If we look at, that's the Cenobite puzzle box. Puzzles, labyrinths, all those things are places of information. They're places, they're not just things to look at or play with. And of course, you can go to, I don't know if they have Toys R Us here, or Kids R Us. They have Toys R Us, Kids R Us, toy store. Well, you can go and buy one of these $9.95 Cenobite puzzle boxes, and with 30 grams of dried mushrooms, I can guarantee you that Pinhead and the rest of them will come out of this. Kemet, or Egypt, has a very developed secret pharmacological entheogenic culture inside of it. That's the secret of Kemet, of Egypt. That's where they got how to build pyramids and Tekken and all those different types of things. They brought back what they saw in their sojourns by utilizing the tree of life, which was the sacred acacia, which was DMT, mixed with the Syrian rue, also the sacred mushroom, also the lotus with some other things, mixed with the lotus. They downloaded into the macro world what they saw in the world of the heavens. And so when they saw these things built in light, out of light in the hyperdimensional realms, they came back and they built their civilization around what they saw in their sojourns, and they built out of stone and granite what they saw in light in the hyperdimensional realms. So Wasir or Osiris, or the Lord of the perfect black, the one who is the master of the underworld, represents the underworld that the mushroom mycelium grows in, the land of darkness, the underworld, before it springs into the light. So this is a representation of a psilocybin mushroom on my right and Ansar Wasir Osiris on the left. He's in his mushroom form because it's the knowledge of the dark world, the underworld, that Osiris brings in all of his majesty and understanding and things like this. This is the undercap of the psilocybin mushroom, the circle within the circle. This is a glyph. This is a glyph that is dealing with one particular family. This glyph is Ra. This says Ra, R-A, or Ray, whichever way you want to call it. You can transpose the vowels. What one family, the family of Ra, how they chose to clothe themselves in reality, which was downloaded from the transdimensional realms into reality in ancient Kemet, which was Eden. That's where you get the pleated skirt, pleated clothing. You see the ancient world, the ancient Greeks wore pleated skirts. The ancient Kemetic people wore pleated skirts. The ancient Mesopotamians wore pleated skirts with tassels, and so on and so forth, because that represented the technology of certain clothing. Clothing is information. It wasn't just for being on your behind so that you wouldn't be naked. No, it means different things. I'm a traditional warrior in my village. If the hat is this way, it means something. If it's worn to the left, it means something else. If it's worn to the right, it means something else. If it's worn to the back, it means something else. Women wear 2 skirts. Certain places, other places, different technology, but 2 skirts. That's so you know that the woman's married. Because the second skirt is what you take the skirt and tie the baby on the back with. So you know that the woman with 2 skirts, she got 2 skirts, she's married. So you don't mess with her. You don't go up, hey honey, what's your name? Because she got 2 skirts on. Or her head tie, which is part of a woman's secret society, the Gelede Society, according to how she's tied this head piece, gives information on, I'm looking for a husband. No, I'm married. I got a husband, I'm getting rid of him. So it's all different types of information that can be dealt with for clothing. The pleating clothing is the clothing of the falcon. It's falcon clothing. It means the wings of the falcon, the folding and unfolding of time. That's what it means. And it's utilized for just that purpose. In war, in martial arts, entheogenic warfare, the pleated skirt is utilized to, when the person throws a punch at you, the skirt is whipped in a certain direction, and that slows down time. It slows his punch down. When you go to punch, you turn it the other direction, and that speeds your punch up so he can't get it. And then there are certain movements that you do that stop time altogether. This is all part of the entheogenic process that was utilized to deal with that type of warfare, spiritual warfare. Because in Africa, we don't separate spirit from everything else. Everything you do is spiritual. It ain't no, we're gonna go to class tonight and do the lotus posture or the dead dog, or we're going to church and sing a hymn. No, everything you do is spiritual. When you go to get a bucket of water, that's spiritual. The most spiritual thing you can do is farm. They say, do you meditate? Nope, what do? I plant beets and potatoes. That's spiritual. There's no better meditation than you standing there hoeing the weeds out. You got to concentrate so you don't hit your foot. You have to make sure that no weeds are left. Everything is spiritual. So we don't separate the spirit from the matter, the spirit from our work. Khalil Gibran said, work made visible is spiritual. Paraphrasing. Work made visible is spiritual. So to move quickly, this is the glyph of Ra. It says, I'm in Ra. Ra is the circle within the circle. Okay, don't even worry about that. I'm gonna talk. How much time I got left? 5 minutes? Okay. I can do it all in 5 minutes. So what I'm saying is that we're approaching, or we're in the middle of a singularity. The last 100,000 years has been a singularity. We think it's been a long time, but it's been only a blink in the time as far as our relationship and the Earth's relationship to the rest of the universe. So it's only been like that. We've only been human like that. So we're in the middle of a singularity. We're in the middle of a movement, and each and every one of you are at the forefront of that movement of us becoming something different. So as I said at the first Breaking Convention conference up the road in Canterbury, I said we need to take more. We need to be responsible in taking that more. In other words, you don't just jump into 30 grams, you incrementally move that way. And there's nothing wrong with coming back down if you have to. And there's nothing wrong with never doing that if that's not what you're here to do. But for those people who have the wherewithal and the tenacity to be able to go into the higher doses, I think that is the way to go. So psilocybin as a tool of exploration, because we need more Dr. Stranges, as I said earlier. We need those who are going to encounter those beings in the multiverse and sojourn with them for knowledge, for power, for understanding, and bring those things back and say, hey, you know, I saw a jinn named Ulba who was powerful. He tried to trick me out and trick me into killing myself, but I'm still here. He's not. But this is what it's about. It's about becoming more. In Africa, although many things are still secret, has been at the forefront of this movement of the progression of the human into the next level since we became human. And I think that this movement is moving forward. I think that there'll be a lot of difficult times, you know, because the ayahuasca thing is going kind of, it's becoming kind of touristy and things like that, and the tourist doses and things like that. But people who are serious, who are dealing with this type of medicine and changing their lives with it, I think it's a very positive thing. But psilocybin is different. It's a whole different animal as far as the journey is concerned. There's no bottom to it. You can't get to the bottom of it. Nobody knows what it is. There are no experts. I've been doing it more than 40 years. And, last year they threw me a loop. I was like, oh, I'm gonna take 35 grams and it ain't no big deal. I'm moving up to 40 and things like that. But it threw me for a loop. And I'm no different than anybody else. I'm not the badass and all that kind of stuff. I'm just a person who wants to know. And I'll make the sacrifice to know what this thing is about.